When the going gets rough, you know how the saying goes. Sometimes things happen. Life happens, and it's not always our fault. In this podcast, we'll feature real-life testimonials from people like you, from good times to bad, funny memories and hard lessons learned. Everyone has a story, and everyone has been there. From business owners to parents to young adults, the Hive Five aims to tell stories of overcoming the struggles of adulting while celebrating the little victories of life. In each podcast, our guests will give insight to 5 key takeaways from someone who's been there and done that, leaving you better than when you started.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening today. This is Catherine Parker, the Marketing Director at BriteBee, and this is a really special podcast because the subject is actually our CEO, Keagan Henson, and his wife, Madison. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
So one of the reasons that we had you guys on today is because y'all have a really unique story. And one of the audiences that we're catering to is parents. And so we want to talk a little bit about you guys as parents and also as entrepreneurs and just kind of your ride together. So I know that this is going to be pretty relaxed and I'm expecting it to be pretty comedic. But you two have 2 boys and I know it's crazy fun and chaotic in a world of boys. I came from a house with just girls, so I know that it's completely different. And I just want you guys to give us a glimpse into your life as parents and the struggles there.
Well, I'll say this, that just by trying to get this podcast set up with myself and Madison was a struggle. It took many times talking through it and many things of, usually I just send a calendar invite to someone. And we had to strategically plan this, and then our strategic plan did not work. And so we had to change that. So that's how our life goes pretty much every day.
Yes. Basically, we make a plan and then we do the exact opposite. So.
You two are very flexible. I'll give you that. Just by being a bystander, I can see how often your plan changes. So
yes.
That's pretty funny. For those of you listening, it's hilarious because they were going to have somebody watch the boys, and then they couldn't get somebody to watch the boys. So Madison's doing the podcast from home, and right before when we were testing stuff, Keagan was saying, Madison, I can hear Magic School Bus in the background. Shut the door.
Yes, that's real life.
I know she's a little perturbed by that, but honestly, I don't want to hear a Magic School Bus in the background. So.
And to me, it's funny, but to me, hearing Magic School Bus is like, okay, they're contained for at least 10 minutes.
Right. So, yeah, that's cheap entertainment right there.
Yes. Yeah. And we have to be, you have to use it at the right time. You can't just throw out TV every time or then they don't enjoy it as much. So
that's awesome. Well, okay. So Keagan and Madison, your entire story is pretty unconventional.
Yes.
So let's go back before parents. Keagan and Madison, when they were younger, were friends for several years, and then they decided to join together and become husband and wife. So tell everybody about that story because that is one of my favorite stories.
Keagan, would you like to start?
Yeah,
okay.
I think the entrepreneur spirit started before we were married, and the way it worked and the way we usually start businesses and everything else is we have the idea and then we start going for it. And so the way our marriage worked is that we were best friends for a long time, and one day I was driving in my car and I thought, my parents always said that I was going to marry my best friend. And that was either my sister, my twin sister. And I said, okay, well, that's not going to work. And then I looked and then Madison was the next person. And those were my two friends. And so I said, well, I guess that's the person. And so in 24 hours or less, I had asked her father what he thought. And then after he said, well, I think it's fine. Then I went and asked her to marry me. And so that's really how it went. It wasn't very romantic, and I made a lot of mistakes. She thought I was actually asking her to be in a job position.
Yeah.
And so she thought I was offering her a job. And
he said, do you want to join me in what I'm doing? That was his way of saying, do you want to marry me?
Thanks for sharing that with everyone now. I've already said that was wrong of me to say.
Yeah, well, and just so everyone knows, he proposed again and did it the correct way. He said, that was a really bad way to say that. I've
actually proposed multiple times, trying to make up for how I did it the first time.
Yeah.
But our story is our story.
Yeah, it is.
I love that story. That is just hilarious. I mean, I just laugh every time. And so I think what's even funnier, though, is Madison's perspective of thinking that he was offering you a job.
Yes.
Like, that just kills me. That's hilarious.
It made no sense to me. I was like, what?
I love it.
Yeah.
So my understanding was there was a lot of silence and a lot of thinking and praying. And then there was a lot of excitement after you knew for sure.
Yes, I was very quiet. And then after about 45 minutes of thinking and praying, I finally said yes. And then he was silent and I was like a chatterbox. So,
and I think I was silent because I just paid a ton of money for a meal that I only ate. So I think I was a little thrown off by that.
Yeah, right after he asked me, they handed us like a 30-ounce steak at this steakhouse. And I'm an eater. Like, I have no problem getting a steak down, but I didn't take a bite of it. So I just handed it to him and I was like, I just need a minute. So yeah, and he ate the whole thing.
That is hilarious. Yeah, he had to occupy his nerves.
Yes.
Using the steak. Whereas you were like, forget the food. I think I just got engaged.
Yes. So
oh, that is so funny. So wild start. And then there was obviously, a next wild adventure shortly after y'all got married when you moved up to DC for Keagan to be an entrepreneur for Chopped. So y'all tell everybody just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I would say that was probably my, education piece. I moved up there because I thought I'd be really challenged, and I was. And moving, in what a month from the time we got married from the place that she's been her whole life, definitely a unique thing to do, and also very challenging. And then we found out that she was pregnant a few months after that, and thought we are in this crazy place, and enjoyed it to an extent, but really wanted to be closer to family, and also preferred not to raise our children in Washington, D.C. So we decided to move back at that point and experience some things in the insurance world. And that lasted for many years, 4 to 5 years. And then we are here today at BriteBee.
Yeah.
So moving from Washington, D.C., obviously this is the reason we're here, is to talk about y'all's journey as parents and entrepreneurs. And so, Madison, what was going through your head whenever you were thousands of miles away from home? Keagan was working, 90% of the day, and you were pregnant, and, you weren't going to have any help, and Keagan was going to be busy. So what was that like?
Well, thankfully, the pregnancy itself was easy. I didn't really have a lot of struggles. I just had to sleep a lot. And I was working and doing like the unloading shifts. So I'd get up about 4:45 and then go to work. Yeah, the pregnancy was easy, but I think the hardest thing is on a good day, Keagan was, or on a slow day, I should say, was working 14 hours. So he may be working 18 hours one day. So I'm pretty much by myself. And so that was really hard because I was like, to have a baby and then to not see him a lot, I think that was more of the struggle. So thankfully the pregnancy was easy. It was just more the time away and not having any family there. It was the first grandbaby on both sides, which is a huge deal. And our families are very involved. And so we wanted them to be involved in our children's lives. And so that's when we thankfully had an open door for Keagan to do insurance back home. And I was very excited, I think, when he decided to do that, because I wanted to be with my family and wanted, really wanted them to get to be a part of that.
I can totally understand. I can't imagine being so far away and not having any help around you. And kudos to those people that are able to do it, because
they do. It's amazing. We've met people that have done that, and I'm just like, that's so impressive, because, it can be done. It's not that it can't, but if you have the opportunity opportunity to be by your family, I would hope that people can do that.
For those of you listening, Keagan and Madison have two precious blonde-headed boys,
Yep.
Eller and Statham.
Yes.
And they are sometimes so alike and completely the opposite at the same time. So
Yes.
tell us just a little bit about, Eller and Statham and how they're like y'all and how they're completely not like each other. Paint a picture for everybody.
Yes. So Eller he just turned 5. Statham is about to turn 3. And I didn't know until I got around other kids how high energy they were, just because they're my only children, and I wasn't around a lot of kids before I had kids. And so I just thought this was normal life. And then we go in public and I'm like, they are crazy. I mean, they're everywhere. And sometimes I'm just like, what is going on? And my mom's like, yeah, I just don't think you all were that high energy. And so I'll ask Keagan's mom and she's like, oh, it's normal. Don't worry. Keagan was just like that.
We use our parents a lot to try to measure, are we doing something wrong, or is this actually how we acted?
Yes.
And so that helps us. It brings quite a bit of encouragement, because my mom always looks at us like, yeah, Keagan was the problem child. Like, he cried a lot and also had lots of energy and was pretty stubborn.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I can speak to Keagan as an adult having a lot of energy and being pretty stubborn. So to bottle that up into 2 humans that are 2 feet tall,
yes,
that's a lot of energy to burn off.
Yeah, and mine doesn't show as much in me. Just I don't really know why, but I am stubborn and strong-willed and want, I have my way in areas. And so unfortunately and fortunately, they got it from both parents. And so that's really hard because they're just full of it, and there's times when Ellers wants to do something and it's like, well, I mean, what he's wanting to do isn't necessarily bad, but at the same time, it's not what I told him to do, and my way needs to happen. And so that's, that's hard because we both are very strong-willed in that. And so, working with that and trying to figure out how to, because you look at Keagan and you see how him being strong-willed and sometimes stubborn has actually benefited him in business and different things. And so with Eller, it's like, how do we teach him how to use that in a healthy way? Because those qualities can be really good. And so it's trying to, I guess, encourage him in that instead of totally squash it. You know what I mean?
And Keagan has this vision of his boys being his business partners one day. And while Statham is kind of still coming out of that terrible twos phase.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Eller, as he calls himself, is a wooka.
He is a wooka.
He's a wooka. And I think that's one way we try to channel all of his energy and all of the other things that he wants to do is providing him opportunities to work. And that's one thing we have plenty to do of. We do work a lot. So trying to help him understand as well that you don't have to work all the time, but also how can we help him understand what work is and what good work is. And so that's something we're working through. I feel like we're working through that daily.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm thankful he does like to work. I mean, the other night he was crying because we sent him with Keagan's mom instead of staying and working with us. And he was so distraught. And I was like, I know, but you got to help us work last night. So working through that. And Statham likes to work too. Since he's a little younger, it's a little bit different. And him and Eller, it's funny. They are, like you said, a lot alike, but it just shows in different ways too. And, even in when they get upset, Eller, you can usually talk to him, kind of talk him off the ledge. Statham, like once he's done, he's done. And it can be a meltdown on the floor. It's just, and he's strong. And so that's a whole different, like I've told Keagan that Eller to me is like mentally exhausting because he just wants to talk it out and all this. And Statham is physically exhausting because he just is going to go and his favorite thing to do is wrestle. The minute we walk in the door at my parents', he's ready to just punch and hit and tackle my dad. And it's great. But I think that's one area that they're kind of different with him. And I think that's good.
We've talked about our children, but Madison, I want to hear from you on what it's like to deal with an adult child. And And how do you keep Keagan going and alive, and how do you have patience and endurance with all the changes that we've had in our life?
Yeah. Well, that's a very loaded question. Keagan did tell me in him starting, well, a long time ago when we were in DC, and it was very difficult for me to be there and difficult for him. He just said, I just need you to make me laugh. I was like, okay, well, I'm not a funny person, so I will start working on that just to keep him encouraged during the hard times. And so I think we've tried to carry that over even now. And his newest challenge for me was to keep him alive and to be patient. So he just said, with starting at this new business, that's what I need from you. And so that's more my role. I live by food. So after breakfast, I'm thinking about lunch, and it's not good. I'm working on it. Keagan is the opposite. He will go 12 hours because he needed to work and not have a bite to eat. So
and I just call it intermittent fasting at that point.
And I call it ridiculous because I'm like, you could work 10 times better if you just had food. So it sounds silly, but that is probably my main thing, is just keeping him fed, whether that means bringing meals to him, things like that. But on a family basis, doing an entrepreneur lifestyle, I guess you can call it, there is no consistency. I mean, there are days when it's like, man, this next week, I just really want to work out consistently or do this bedtime routine. And it just never happens because one day we may have to work till 9 and the next day we may not be working as much, and so that is like, the boys still have to see him. And so that may mean we just go up and have lunch at his office, or he comes home at 3:00 for 30 minutes and sees them. And then he goes and works till 9 or 10. That's more what our life looks like. It's just very inconsistent, but we're having to figure out how to make time to where we still are a family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now the entrepreneur side and being patient, I don't know if I can speak on that too much because I'm not very good at that. I think
help
that's one
her
of the
with
things
her patience. I remind her that she needs to be patient with all of us, all of us boys.
Yeah, all of the boys. And it's very difficult just because you just never know with them. And all three of them are going. And it's funny because before we got married, I was the same way. Like, we are doing things, I'm trying new things and all this stuff, but it's much more difficult when both parents want to do that. And so I know that my time right now is to focus on Keagan and focus on the boys. And so that's more what we do, because we both can't run ourselves ragged or the boys would get no attention.
Right.
And so I think I'm kind of there just to balance that out, or that's what I see my role being, is just to balance that and maybe be the calming one so that Keagan can explore, because he's good at it. I'm not as business minded. I like to work, but I'm not on the same level as Keagan, and he's good at it. And so I want him to be able to do that. And so I just kind of manage the other things so he can do that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that answered what he asked.
No, it absolutely does. And, I know it's a struggle for both of you. Keagan has to find this balance between being a parent and running a business and giving, adequate attention to both. And then, Madison, you're with the boys constantly. So finding that time for yourself and being the one that's getting the encouragement rather than the one that's always, outpouring the love. So I know that you both, that's part of your daily life. So what are some of the best ways that you two make time for each other, or even as a family?
Oh boy.
Oh gosh.
We have to work on that a lot. And honestly, we struggle tremendously.
Yeah. It's probably not our strong suit.
Currently, we do struggle, but I will say that most of our times are sporadic. So we find, let's say during the day, a time to spend time, and we will literally call someone up and ask, can they watch the boys, or we'll go do something. And it's not planned almost ever. And that usually is our best times, don't you think?
Yeah, when we try and plan it out and perfect it, and, all those things.
And I don't do very well. I don't do very well with like long planned out days. I just don't.
Can't handle
I
it.
don't do very well, and so I think it's healthy for us. I do at some point in our life. We definitely would like to have a little bit more. Oh, I don't know, consistency and time together. But I think we've come to an understanding, and as we communicate more every single day, we come to an understanding that this is where we are, this is where we've been placed, and how are we going to utilize this time? How are we going to work through those struggles? How are we going to work through communicating with each other and to make it work? And, that's one thing that I'm just so thankful to have my best friend for, and to have someone there that says that they're willing to go through this together. And, I know that there's a lot of times when many, spouses don't support what their other spouse is doing. And for many reasons, it's encouraging to have Madison, next to me and pushing me along and keeping me fed. And, my hope is that, I know that she's sacrificing a lot as well right now. And my hope is that, I can serve her now and later on as we grow and as life changes, that maybe she'll be able to do some things as well that she would like to do. But what I've always asked her is like, what do you want to do right now? And right now she wants to focus on the boys, and I fully support that and think it's wonderful. And so that's what she's doing, and she does a very good job at it, and runs a tight ship, and we're just so thankful for that.
And you two are a great pair, because you're both doing exactly what you want to do, and you're both so supportive of that. I think that that's a great testament to any couple. Sometimes I watch you two as parents, and I see the boys do, maybe something they're not supposed to do, and it is so stinking funny. It is so funny. I have to look away and laugh, and it just makes me wonder, like, how do y'all do it? What are some of the funniest moments that you two have found yourself in as parents, and how do you handle it? Because, like, how do you discipline when all you can do is laugh?
Oh, it's unbelievable. But somehow when they're doing something that is like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen, but I need to take you down for doing that, one of us will laugh and just run out of the room, and the other one disciplines, because sometimes it's so funny. And I don't know how we do it, but we do take turns in that, because there's sometimes when I'm like, okay, if I don't make eye contact with Keagan, I think I can do this round. And so he'll just dart out of the room or have to turn his face or something.
And sometimes we would really like to be the ones that can discipline every time, and we really try to be, but at the same time, sometimes I just sit there and I just start laughing with them. And I know it's probably the wrong thing.
Much better.
I know it's probably the wrong thing to do, because then they may think that they're doing something right. But sometimes their stupid mistakes and their stupid things that they do bring so much joy to my life, and I can't help but just embrace it.
And isn't it crazy that laughter is so contagious that by the boys doing something that makes you laugh, it makes them laugh and want to do it more? Like that truly, that joy is contagious.
Yeah. And when they're laughing, their genuine laugh, it's so sweet. And that, I probably would say I'm a lot harder than Keagan most of the time. And it may be just because I'm with them more. So when he does laugh at those things, I kind of look at him and then I'm like, we do just need to laugh right now. So I think it's good that he knows when those moments are, because I'm more like, nope, you address every little thing that comes up. And he's like, no, sometimes it's okay just to let that one go. And
it's funny because I think that our kids have really kept us grounded. A lot of people and a lot of our friends actually, don't have children yet, and people we've gone to school with, and they're living their lives and they're doing what they want to do, and business and everything else. And one thing that has, I think, kept us humble to some degree, and I'm not saying that from a proud standpoint, but truly, I mean, it's humbling every day to be at a place where, okay, I can't do everything I want to do. And I've got to be able to not only offer opportunity to be with my wife, but also to be with my children. And so how do we find that balance? And it's a difficult and it's a difficult struggle every day. But I think it keeps you humble. I think it keeps you aware of what's going on, and you have to work a lot harder, and it makes you tough.
Yeah. I want to ask one more question before we go into our 5 takeaways. And this is for all the other parents out there. But I know that you two have to have some insight on some of the best decisions that you've made as parents. And so I'm going to refer to it as a parenting hack. And I want to know, what do you think has been your greatest parenting hack at the moment? You know, I can remember when I was young, my mom, and this is horrible, we were laughing about this the other day, she would turn everything into a game. And so if she didn't want to get off the couch, she would say, I'll count while you run and go get my drink out of the bedroom, and we'll see how long it takes you.
Oh my gosh.
Every time we tried to beat
wow, deceptive practices.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Man.
Isn't that terrible? So like, we were laughing the other day because that was one of her parenting hacks. And I know that y'all probably have something that you would recommend to other parents that is just so funny.
Yes.
And so what would you say that is?
Oh man. Well, this one isn't funny, but one of my friends had mentioned this the other day, and I completely agreed with her that waking up before they do is a total parent hack, because even if it's like 30 minutes just to collect your thoughts, I'm just in such a better mood if I get up before them than if I'm woken up. It's ridiculous. Like even if it's 10 or 15 minutes. So I'd say that's one quick thing. But funny ones, I don't know. I don't feel like we're funny people.
We're not very funny people. We laugh, but I don't know. We don't make many jokes, unfortunately. I will say this, what came to my mind, and we can start playing the dramatic music here, but what came to my mind was, and I think Madison would agree, we really tried to make it a point that we are always giving hugs and kisses to one another. Yeah. And every time we see each other, every time we leave, we make a point to make sure that everyone is noticed and everyone is acknowledged before we leave. And I think that's just so important, especially with our time in our life and how crazy things are. We want to make sure that everyone understands when I leave that they know that they're loved. Even though I may not be there for the next 6 hours or 7 hours or 8 hours, they know that when Dad left, that they got a hug, they got a kiss. And so that's something that, you know, we still have to work through, because sometimes I'm running out the door. But it's very funny now that, you know, Statham and Eller will make comments like, I haven't gotten my hug or I haven't gotten my kiss. And so sometimes they hold us accountable to holding up to our word and what we really want to do with our children and just our family.
Yeah, well, that is so sweet. That's just great. I love it. Well, we're going to go over a few minutes here, but in true Hive Five podcast fashion, what are your 5 takeaways for other parents or even entrepreneurs that are listening?
I would say communication is key, especially on the wife end. You know, we have been doing entrepreneurship the last 6 years of our marriage, and this has been probably the best round, just because we have communicated well on, I'm going to be late tonight. Like I may not be home till 10 or 11. So just do what you need to do, versus me sitting at home thinking, okay, is he coming at 6 or 7? Should I time dinner? It sounds so small, but to a wife, that's a huge thing. And then just in the realm of just family, like communication is key. And for Keagan and I, we've known each other now 13 or 14 years. And so sometimes we can over communicate, like, oh, probably shouldn't have said that, should have just kept that in.
Very true.
And so for us, it's just learning how to communicate well, whether that be with the boys or with each other or with people that are coming in our lives or that we're trying to invest in. Either way, communication is so important.
So that's one. I know that you had a couple more. What's your next one?
Yeah, I think my other one was just try to see the other person's side. You know, there are times when Keagan and I disagree, and like in the middle of it, I'm like, okay, he's making a good point, but I don't want to acknowledge it because I'm right too. And it's like, no. Admit, you know, it's so helpful if you just say, okay, I understand what you're saying, you know, and then admit when you're wrong. Those are huge things. And for me and for Keagan and for us, like to to say that we were wrong, we have grace in our household, and it's not as big of a deal to admit that you're wrong because we're just going to forgive you. Now, Keagan is much quicker at forgiving. He's already forgiven me before I even say sorry, where I take a little longer, and he knows that. And so he knows, okay, just give her a little bit of time and then she'll be fine. But yeah, that's kind of 2 in 1, but just to, see the other person's side and to admit when you're wrong, but be graceful with the person when they do that. So,
right. Keagan, you've got a couple.
Yeah. So one of the ones, and this goes back to some of the communication, but one of the things I have a struggle with is listening, and my mind is going in so many different directions. Sometimes I truly have to stop, and even Catherine, everyone will say like, I need your undivided attention right now. And
yeah.
I tell Keagan, eye contact.
Yes.
So
yes,
I really have to work on that. And so I can hear one thing, but I can forget it just as quick as I hear it. And so that's something that I have to work on. I think Madison's definitely better at that, but I think we both continue to work through that. The other one is self-awareness. And I'm a big proponent of practicing self-awareness and understanding where you are and where others are. I think that's really important, especially in this aspect of our lives right now, is understanding that, okay, I'm at work and I'm working really hard, but where is my family? And where are they right now? And are they struggling? Do they need something? Is there a way that I can serve them? And I think that's definitely something that is really important to understand, where your family is and where you are as well with your family. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I had was face your fears together. And that is something that I have had to work through tremendously with BriteBee, and with the other things that started, it's usually been with a brand. And so I had this brand that I could represent and I could grow. And BriteBee has been ground zero, starting from nothing. And it is extremely challenging. It's hard. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, that it's just sometimes excruciating pain almost, just mentally and physically sometimes. And so one of the things that I have really tried to work on, and I think Madison has helped me tremendously, is that facing our fears together and expressing that this is a fear that I have, and how can we work through that versus me being paralyzed by my fear, and then trying to control it and trying to take care of it myself. And so that's something that I felt much strength in with my family. And just the other day, I decided that, I'm not going to worry about my fears. I'm going to look at my family, and I'm going to say, what do I have? Well, I have 2 wonderful children who bring much joy to our lives. And I have a wife who's extremely supportive and will do anything to serve me or my family. And that thankfulness should provide enough joy for me to move on. That's definitely something I would say that we've been working on, but in the end would be my last high five of the day.
I think this podcast is so great. I thank y'all so much for allowing me to interview you guys, because there was something for everyone in this podcast, something that everyone I think can relate to, whether they're a parent or not, whether they're an entrepreneur or not. There are just some really good life lessons here. When I titled our parenting playlist, my headline was, "You don't know till you've been there." And so it's great to hear from somebody who has been there and done that. Adulting is a struggle and parenting is a struggle. So thank you guys so much for letting us walk in your shoes. To our listeners, thank y'all for letting us go a little over time. I hope y'all enjoyed it. There's life lessons to be learned in this podcast. Appreciate you all, and we will catch you guys next time on the Hive Five.